Hi there. It is June 16th, 2024. It is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. I'm wearing the hat my kids got me there. Little dude relaxing in his chair. This morning, I'm going to talk about joy. And I don't usually speak about what I'm going to talk about. I usually enter into a story or something like that. To tell you what I'm going to tell you is to speak in a deductive way, telling you what I'm going to say and then saying it and then telling you what I told you. The 3 points in a poem, a little bit older style of speaking, deductive preaching. I usually speak in an inductive way, leading you through a story or an idea or a song lyric or a movie that I saw, leading you down a path from one place to another place, inviting you to come with me from one place to another place. Inductive preaching lets you come to your own conclusion as you arrive at the new destination, hopefully with me, bringing you there. But this morning, our subject is joy. 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 And it struck me that the starting line and the finish line for joy are pretty much the same. Joy can often be mistaken for happiness. You can experience joy and happiness at the same time. When that happens, it's great. But joy is different than happiness. There's something a little bit more long-lasting about joy versus happiness. Joy is mistaken for happiness because happiness is a good feeling, and so is joy. But joy is beyond just a good feeling. It's sort of like living in northeastern Oklahoma where I grew up. It's a great place with fantastic people, but I don't want to live there anymore. Joy, happiness is that thing that we can visit from time to time, but joy is our permanent residence. If you told somebody you were happy all the time, they would think, you're ignoring things, or you're not paying attention to what's going on in the world. Constant happiness, ignoring problems, isn't healthy. But joy is that place where we live, not just visit. Joy is our permanent address. It's that thing, it's that quality, that something that keeps us going from dark to light, from sleep to awake, from inactivity to satisfying activity, from lack of production to abundance. Joy. I recently saw the animated movie, the Pixar movie, Inside Out. Clever, smart, funny. It depicts the thought process of a little girl through characters that are in her mind, and each character is an emotion. But joy, there's this quality about joy. She is luminescent. She is light. Everywhere she goes, things around her get brighter. When everything takes a turn, we can still have joy. When things are not going our way in our day, we can still have joy. When the doctor returns the call a little too quickly, or when it's hot out and you're standing on the interstate next to a car that has lost its sense of carness, it won't car, you can still have joy. You do not have happiness, but you can still have joy. Joy is that good soil where hope and love and life not only grow but thrive. That production that's exponential. Joy is that guarantee that's behind the encouragement. Joy is that confidence behind the endurance or the ability to keep going. So this morning I invite you to think about the things, your projects, your work, your accomplishments, but especially the people, the friendships, the relationships. Maybe the music, the authors, the movies that bring you joy. Think about those things that bring you joy, that evoke joy out of you. And I want to encourage you to find ways to amplify that feeling. And not just the feeling of it, but the presence of it. Enlarge and magnify that joy. Expand and intensify those things. We're going to be reading from Philippians. The author Paul is writing to the early church. Finally, rejoice in the Lord. For me to write the same things to you is not tedious. In other words, for me to say these things over and over to you is to evoke that sense of love and that sense of peace and that sense of joy. And it's not tedious, it's wonderful. Paul, in a sense, is inviting us to choose to have responsibility for having joy ourselves, for producing joy ourselves, and also to consider somebody else and helping them do the same thing. Sort of having a responsibility for someone else's joy. Choosing to have responsibility for their joy. He's inviting us to be tender with people, as if they are in our care. Are we our brother's keeper? Love your neighbor as yourself. There are things we can do. There are things you and I can tangibly do every day to make sure that we're looking out for, guarding, taking care of our joy and other people's joy. If you're a parent, or if you're an adult taking care of your own parents, or if you're in a job that has responsibility for other people in your community, a teacher, a healer, you constantly make sure that people are okay. You just do it because you're great at your job. What I'm inviting you to do today is do that more. Have that same sort of outlook, that sort of protective spirit for others, that same outlook for everyone. Because in a sense, you are a farmer or a cultivator of joy. Do that more. Have that same outlook. You know, for pretty much 2 decades of my life, for 180 days a year, each year, I would wake up my kids to go to school, or I would be in the process of getting them ready to go to school. And there were days when they just popped up and they were awake and ready to go, or other days when they were older that they took care of themselves. But so many days we had to be in the process of getting them up out of bed, ending rest and beginning day. And it happened again and again and again. It became routine, but it struck me that it wasn't tedious, because there's this feeling of gratitude as you're watching your child take on the day with enthusiasm and excitement and happiness. Watching a child wake up every morning, you feel with them a certain joy of the day, a gratitude for that responsibility, being responsible to nurture the joy of other people, offering encouragement, helping them sort ideas and worries, instilling confidence, reminding them that the test, regardless of the outcome, is going to be okay. You know this. Do your best. You got this. It became routine, but it wasn't tedious because of the gratitude and the joy. I sort of think of it like this. If you only had one small room in your house that had Wi-Fi and you couldn't get Wi-Fi anywhere else in your home, where do you think people would spend the majority of their time? It's sort of like that with joy. You have to have joy and present joy to be attractive for joy. The invitation this morning is to amplify that joy. Spread it to the other rooms in your house. Spread it to your neighbors. Spread it to the folks that you see every day. The invitation this morning is to amplify your joy. What would it look like to understand your life, or your church family, or your work family, or your family, and everything you do every day is an exercise of cultivating and sharing and promoting and enlarging joy? Imagine the world we'd have. Imagine this outbreak of thoughtfulness, a world where it's commonplace to lift other people up to the point that they know joy. Not superficiality, not hello, but hello, how are you? What would it look like to live our lives with the purpose of wanting the best for our neighbor? Not just once in a while, not just when we feel like it, but looking at our neighbor and saying, I refuse to let negativity or loss or fear or anger have the last word in your day. I refuse to let that happen. It's a commitment to praying for and serving and actively benefiting your neighbor, to be loved, so that both of you know joy in relationship. Joy. We conflate joy with happiness, but joy is deeper. Sometimes joy is the opposite of happiness. It's sort of a kick in the pants. This idea or emotion or timely word when you get sick of being sick. And sometimes joy shouts in your brain, don't agonize, organize. Get up, you can do this. You've got this. However the day turns out, you're going to be okay. Sometimes joy is the opposite of happiness because it compels us to actively engage with other people. And for some folks, that's scary. Actual words to an actual person? But joy moves us to tangible action, tangible service, flowing from our joy to somebody else's joy, in spite of any circumstance, in spite of how things look in your world, in spite of what we're all going through. You and I, right now, have neighbors who are waiting for transplants, neighbors whose loved ones are fighting illness, or they themselves are fighting this thing that they're not even telling anybody about. I see neighbors wondering where their next meal is going to come from. Not all homeless people or hungry people hold up signs. So when we speak about joy, we're not being flippant about this. We're not being oblivious to daily suffering. We're saying in spite of, even though. We're not talking about happy. Happy doesn't always help. Just be happy. Heavy situations can't always be traversed well with happiness, because happiness is fleeting. But difficult times are definitely more difficult without a full tank of joy, because joy can sustain. You and I, we cannot afford to let despair have the final word in the world. And that's not a happy thing or a flippant thing. That is a deep and abiding thing. We can't let our neighbors be defeated without any recourse, without any resistance. Our neighbors need to know that there's more to the story than their lowest moment or their biggest fear. And you and I, we need to practice and exercise and use and deploy joy regularly so that we can make through the crises of life. We say here that we can love anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. If you are there, love is there. I can't think of a better way to display true love than exercising our responsibility to God to increase and amplify and enlarge our joy. Because truth is, there are calamities that self-help can't address. Some storms need more than some me time. Paul in Philippians chapter 3, verses 7 to 9 speaks to me. It's sort of old-fashioned language. But when things were gained to me, I've counted loss for Christ. Yes, yet indeed, I also count all things lost for the excellence of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish, that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having my own righteousness, but that which is through faith in Christ, the righteousness that comes from God in faith. What? Sometimes in life we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize love. And love isn't always convenient, and care isn't always easy, and compassion can be really difficult because we throw in things like fairness. It's not fair. Or we throw in things like timing, calendars, schedules. Sometimes we have to prioritize God's love. And when we do, joy very often will rise to the top. Because we have an attachment. We have a connectedness to the one in whom we live and move and have our being. And that relationship is what makes it possible to have joy and to share joy and to prioritize joy. Paul's saying anything else is rubbish, really, beyond that relationship, beyond those things that we do with God and for our neighbor. When we talk about protecting and guarding and defending our neighbor's joy, we do it because we're attached to the source of that joy, the center of that joy. Without that attachment to God, there's really no way to do what I'm inviting us to do today. Things can be difficult. Life can really suck sometimes. Life is difficult even if you don't feel like you have any responsibility to anybody else. No sense of personal responsibility at all. You just do your own thing. Don't think about yourself or your neighbors. It's just all you. Even narcissists have a bad day. But this morning, I want to encourage you to find your joy, and then share it. I invite you to hold on, no matter the storm that you're weathering at the moment, no matter the diagnosis or the peril or the threat, whether it's coming from the outside or from within you. I invite you today to find joy. Find that way, feeling or energy or that source of light, and appreciate it and value it and nurture it. It's Father's Day. I hope that you have parents and mentors and people of kindness in your life that have made an impact on your life, and that you can celebrate them with them. Celebrate that relationship with them today. For some, it may not be a happy Father's Day, but it can still be a joyful Father's Day. My dad had a joyful spirit about him. He wasn't always happy, but he was very often joyful. I try to keep that image in mind, especially on days like today, as I work to find and prioritize, cultivate and share joy. I invite you to do the same.